Guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and having learned quite a few things from, through, and from within human interactions, and having pursued and completed my master's in business administration and clinical psychology, I today wish to talk about over concerns and how at times those over concerns of our own loved ones, of our own near and dear ones, of our own family members can at times be the biggest psychological and emotional challenge, can at times be the biggest obstacles in our path, in our life journey, in our growth, and in our evolution, can at times feel like the biggest challenging mountains, both physically and psychologically, that we ever overcome. And why I say when I say that is primarily because that is where our support system comes into the picture, comes into the play, and is also because that is where our belief systems, at least to some degree, are challenged both on personal and on interpersonal levels. And it is when we overcome those belief systems, we are not just overcoming them, but we are overstepping them. We probably are also overthrowing them as well. And of course, at times, our most monumental growths, our greatest growths, our greatest evolution, both on personal and on interpersonal level, happens through the greatest challenges as well. With the understanding, with the reality check, that in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to grow and evolve in that manner, which seems psychologically and emotionally monumental, we also need the backing of a firm, strong, resilient support system. The system that is willing to show up for us when we wish to show up for ourselves. The system that is willing to show up for us, to be with us, to run with us, to walk with us, to sit with us. When at times we might need a little pull and a push to show up for ourselves once again, maybe all over again. And in order to get into that, in order to dive into that, in order to understand that, or at least have a preview of that, I'd like to take up two movies as the example to elaborate on that. So just a few days back, I had watched this movie, Bunjans Story, The Kargil Girl. And I had been wanting to see this movie for the past 3-4 months and was not able to get a handle of it on the YouTube videos. So I'd asked my daughter to help me out with it, which she of course did by providing me the link for her Amazon Prime, the subscription of which was with her. Now when I saw this movie, there were a lot of nuances that I got to witness. For me personally, it just wasn't a real story that was converted into a motivational story. For me, it was not just the story of a first attempt into places and spaces where women had never been permitted before. For me, it just wasn't a story of bravery and courage. For me, it was not just a story of pursuing one's passion, but it was much more than the collection of all of that as well. It was a story of somebody believing in their own dreams and finding the right support system to back that up as well. It was a story that also showed that doing anything for the first time does make one feel out of place and does require a great amount of courage and confidence. Does require one to challenge the already existing beliefs, the already existing prejudices and biases. It was a story that on some conscious level and a large part of it on unconscious levels also talks about these unconscious biases that we have with regards to gender role plays, not just on individual level but on collective levels as well. And on another level, when we talk about overcoming those biases, those prejudices, unconsciously, unknowingly, we are also telling ourselves that we are being disloyal to the beliefs that have existed so far and for so long. That we are not being blindly loyal to what has been passed and to what has been circulated around, that we on a very unconscious level have embodied. So, coming back to the topic where over concern of our own loved ones, of our own family members, of people that we seek support from, can at times be the biggest challenges, both psychologically and emotionally, that we at times will face in our lives. That can be the biggest obstacle for our own growth and evolution, and not just personally, but even on interpersonal levels. So, for those of us who've seen this movie and seen the progression of the movie, wherein the main character, the protagonist character, is played and is depicted by Janvi Kapoor, we come to see, we come to observe that there's this little kid who gets fascinated from a very young age with aircrafts. She gets very excited with the thought of flying an aircraft, with flying with the aircraft. And we kind of see that that dream begins to grow in her, begins to grow with her as she grows. And of course, then we also get to see that not only is she willing to show up for herself from very early on when she goes to submit her own certificates, time and time and time again. And every time she's told that you need to get some more certifications, some more degrees, because you're still not qualified, because she's still not qualified to pursue her dreams and her aspirations. And of course, she goes ahead and gets those degrees and those qualifications as well. And while all of this is happening, as the movie is progressing, as she's growing, as her dreams are also growing with and within her, we also notice, we also get to see that there's a support system that she has in place. It's her father. It's her father who believes in her own dreams and aspirations. It's her father who wants her to achieve those as well, not just for herself, but also for him, for them as a team member. Here's a team member, here's a support system, here's a father who would at times place a newspaper clipping or even a newspaper while she was still sleeping in her bed. Here was this father who was also willing to get up with her, run with her, jog with her, bicycle with her, when she was one of the very few women who got selected in the armed forces, in the Air Force, for the very first time. It was here that this girl had gotten selected in the space and the place which was predominantly male-dominated, had no concept of toilet and of changing room for girls, had required her to lose a few kilos in very few days. And we almost see this character and this girl giving up on her dreams, her aspirations. And it was her father's support. It was his willingness to show up for her so that she could show up for herself, to run for her so that she could run after her dreams, to be with her so that she could be with herself, even when situations were challenging, were rather very challenging. And yet, in the same breath, we also see two other family members, her mother and her brother, who were more concerned, who were overly concerned about her safety and her future. Her brother trying to constantly give her a bigger reality check of how the world has always functioned, of how she should give up on her unrealistic dreams and thereby her unrealistic expectations. And which is here where I personally find a beautiful mix of the reality check and thereby a real expectation from ourselves and from others as well. So in my understanding, when the brother or the mother is trying to be overly cautious, to a degree or maybe to a large degree, they of course are becoming an obstacle in her growth, in her own evolution. And in the same breath, they also have a reality check that this place and space and this service has predominantly been there for men. And thereby, in keeping with that perspective, most of the logistics has not been curated and cultivated with the idea of including women, with the idea of including females, which to a large degree is the reality, is still the reality. And yet there was this father who was also willing to see, who was also willing to understand that if an aircraft doesn't demarcate between the genders, why should we? Why should humans do? Here was this person, here was this father who was also willing to see that what his wife and his own son were seeing and were saying was the reality to a large degree. He was also willing to see another reality, that if the system in itself was opening doors, was now opening doors, was now willing to curate and cultivate spaces for females, for women, was willing to take baby steps towards its own systemic progress, towards its own systemic inclusion. Why are we resisting that on an individual level? And thereby, to some degree, he was willing to step into the newer reality, which was scary because it's newly coming into the picture, which is scary, which is challenging, for it has not been walked on before. For it is an unfamiliar territory, an unfamiliar ground that has not been tested earlier. And so, in a way, we can also understand that these are two different realities, two different perspectives that are happening and that are playing at the same time, in the same breath. So, he was not out of touch with reality, but he was brave enough to venture into a new reality, to step into a new reality. And so, in a way, we can also say that had she not been supported primarily by her father, she would have probably gotten married and not become the Kargil girl, which she had, of course, thought about after joining the forces, after venturing into the field, to really experience the gravity and the challenges with regards to the pre-existing prejudices and biases that she had to face and overcome. And beautifully enough, even when she decides to give up on her dreams and she comes back to tell her father that she wants to get married like one of her friends recently did, though disappointed, he still supports her and he tells her, if that is what you want to do, let me help you, let me support you, let me teach you how to manage household chores and thereby also be of service to others. Now, if we can take another example of the movie Tare Zaminpur, wherein this little kid feels bullied, unfortunately by his own parents, by teachers, and by his classmates. We also get to see by the last bit of the movie that he is able to showcase himself, he is able to present himself, he is able to express himself in creative ways, which is his own natural intelligence. When somebody is willing to support him, when somebody is willing to show up for him, when somebody is able to validate his experience for him. And it is his trust in his teacher, which of course takes time to build, that he is able to show up for himself through the expression of his art, which was his voice, which was his talent, which was his skill. And so when we understand the context of how over-concern at times can be very debilitating, at times can be monumentally challenging from our own family members, from our own loved ones, from our own support system, we also need to find the right support system. We also need to build the right support system that is able to show up for us when we feel demotivated, that is able to run with us, that is able to walk with us, that is able to sit with us when we feel undersupported or unsupported and psychologically and emotionally undernourished and deprived. And we also need to recognize that the over-concern is coming from a place of genuine love and genuine concern also. And unfortunately, that concern has turned into over-concern, has turned into too much worry. Is coming from a place of their own subjective reality. And we need to be able to look at it through that perspective. We need to be able to figure out the people who also support us, who also stand by us, who also stand for us, who also show up for us. We need to be able to take the call to be psychologically disloyal to some aspects of over concern, of established beliefs, of established belief systems, of established belief patterns. And unless we do that for ourselves, both on personal and on interpersonal levels, it'll be very tough. It'll be close to impossible to overcome those presenting challenges. To then start a new chapter, to then start a new ripple effect. To then grow and evolve, not only individually, but also as a team. Let's try and figure out those nuances. Let's try and see where we tend to get over concerned about something or about somebody, where somebody else's over concern might be inhibiting us both on individual and on a group level, on intrapersonal level and on interpersonal level. And let's even try and figure out our support systems. Just like this kid whose dad always had her back. Whether her ambition and her passion was being directed towards flying aircrafts, or whether her ambitions and her aspirations were being directed towards being a homemaker. She knew that her dad, there's one person who will always have her back, no matter what. And we need to be able to recognize both of those realities to then be able to decide for ourselves how we wish to grow and evolve. Let's try and look into that within our own selves as to when we do tend to get over concerned about something or somebody. Is it our past experiential reality that is dictating our today's world? Or is it the uncertainty, the challenges that the new reality will face, the unknown land that is more scary to face? For no matter where we plan to stay, we'll have to face the challenge of that reality. Let's try and think about that, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.